G'day guys, Luke here. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, guys, we're looking at a new series called Common Illnesses in Reptiles. This will be a 5-part series. The first 4 parts we'll cover off will be more illness-based videos, while the last episode we're looking at injuries that reptiles sustain. Before we actually get into the series, guys, a special shout out does go to Talia, who's a good friend of mine. She's been able to send me a lot of these photos and videos for you guys to see what to look for when something does happen with your reptiles. But today's video, guys, we are looking at mites, metabolic bone disease, as well as impactions. For the format of these videos, by the way, guys, we're looking at the symptoms of what the animal will have, what can be causing the issue, how to prevent it, as well as treatment as well. The first illness we are going to cover off first is mites. Now, I find mites is probably the most common thing out there, so it makes sense to be the first one on the list. Now, for those who be wondering what the heck a mite is, basically the best way I can describe them is either a microscopic version to a tick, or kind of a teardrop shaped bug that likes to feed on your animal's blood. What are some of the symptoms that may showcase your reptiles that have mites? Now, usually what I look for is if my reptiles are actively soaking in the water. Now, I might check the temperatures first, make sure it's not too warm in the enclosure, make sure they're not going to a shed, and if everything seems to be normal, the first thing I start looking is on the animal itself, trying to spot either little things crawling on it, or little white dots to indicate that it's the poop of a mite, and that's wide in the water, trying to drown the mites, trying to kill them. Another way as well is with snakes that have sunken eyes, as the mites target the softest part of the body, which is the eye, and kind of that split in the jaw in snakes. That's where mites are often found. Blue tongues is right around the armpits and that kind of soft area, and with bearded dragons I often find mites around the eyes and the corner of the jaw with them. So how do we get mites in the first place? So there's only 3 main ways I find I get reptiles personally. Now, if I go to a reptile expo and buy an animal off a breeder and bring it home and I don't quarantine them, or even not even checking if they've got mites, chances are I'm going to have mites go through my collection pretty shortly. Now, the best way to prevent that is to quarantine your reptile, any new reptile you get in your family, to make sure you're not transmitting mites from one animal to another that have had all that problems. As well, buying enclosures second-hand off people, sometimes they just want to move stuff on and don't realise there's mites, or they're getting rid of it because they've got mites. Same thing with furniture. After times I like to give the enclosure a good clean, and as well with the furniture, either put it in the bathtub, fill up with hot water, and that should kill just about anything, or put it in a plastic bag, chuck it out in the sun for a few days, and hopefully the insects or mites will just die in the bag. Another way as well, if you're going out in the bush, and this is just unlucky if it happens, grab a nice stick that you think it looks nice in your enclosure, pop it in, don't thinking you need to clean it, then you got mites because there's a mite on that branch. Those are the main ways how we get mites. Moving on to how you treat for mites. So once you have located you got mites, the first thing I usually do is I'll take all the substrate out in the enclosure, put newspaper or paper towel down. The only thing I'll probably leave in the enclosure would be a hide, a food bowl and a water bowl. Well, a food bowl if you've got any lizards, otherwise just a hide and water bowl for your snake. Make sure you have a hide that's easily clean as well. That way if you do have mites, it's not one of those hides which are painful trying to wipe down. And then basically spray the cage and wipe your snake over. So for me personally, depending on the animal that has mites, if it's a young animal like a baby snake or blue tongue, I'll use this avian bird spray stuff that will kill the mites. Yes, there are mite wipes out there and the Mac mite spray that can do the job, but I do find it doesn't really do the quick enough, or it only kills only a very small percentage over time. It doesn't eradicate them completely. So that's why I use this avian bird spray to at least get rid of the mites on smaller stuff. Because if you use Frontline, which a lot of people do use, it can actually overdose the animal quite easily on that. So with any young animals, I avoid the Frontline method completely. Otherwise, anything large like an adult blue tongue, an adult carpet python, and stuff like that, I'll get a rag or some gloves, spray 1 to 2 pumps of that Frontline, no more, because you can still overdose the animal if you use too much. Wipe the animal down, put the animal back. Now I'll take the water bowl out for about 24 to 48 hours, because if the animal goes back in the water after it's just been wiped, if it drinks the water, it can get poisoned because of the residue from the Frontline. Plus, as well, any sprays you put in your enclosure, leave your water bowl out for a couple of days just to be sure you don't poison your animal by mistake. So that's how I usually treat mites, is usually those 2 methods. With bearded dragons, I usually get them around the eyes or kind of around the corner of the jaw. I just get a cotton bud with a little bit of Frontline on it and just dab around it. And then depending on the sprays I either use the Max spray or the Avon bird spray, probably twice a week, spray it down, as mites do reproduce quite quickly, especially in the summertime, as it doesn't take long for the eggs to incubate. Anyway, we're moving on to Maladbug bone disease. Maladbug bone disease. Now, as the name suggests, the symptoms would be the animal's bones, I should say, is not forming the way they should have. Doesn't matter if it's spinal, arm, leg or tail. It can happen in any part of the body. Now, I often find this is a worst case in lizards, not so much with snakes, even though it can happen in snakes. It's more often with lizards I see this happening. Usually what causes it is a lack of calcium powder or UVB in the enclosure. So basically without that, your animal will have weak bones, or the bones themselves won't form proper, and you have pretty much a Hunchback of Notre Dame situation where he looks a bit unique. Preventing Maladbug bone disease is quite easy, as make sure you provide UVB to your reptiles. Make sure you're using the correct level of UVB, depending if your species of reptile is from the rainforest or desert, wherever climate it comes from, as well as providing calcium powder. Now for me, I use calcium powder on most of my crickets, silkworms and woodies when I feed it out to my lizards. I'll find if I put it on the leafy greens, it goes to waste, because sometimes your lizards will look at that and go, what the heck is that? They won't even touch it, so you're basically wasting it. By putting it on an insect, it gets them more excited, and at least when they do eat that, they're getting calcium. So that's how you usually prevent your lizards getting Maladbug bone disease. Once your reptile does have Maladbug bone disease, there's no real treatment for it. The only way to, I guess, make the animal's life as comfortable as possible is by trying to at least reduce the risk of that getting any worse by providing the appropriate UVB as well as the calcium powder supplement. The last illness we'll cover off in this part 1 video would be impactions. Now I see this a lot in mostly small dragons, especially baby rear dragons. Now symptoms would be basically they're kind of off balance, they're kind of throwing themselves around looking kind of distressed. They're bloated and it seems like they're trying to push something out but no fecal matter is coming out. What causes a little bearded dragon to be impacted would normally be 2 reasons. Either the incorrect substrate or they've eaten something a bit too large, like a very large cricket. Now to prevent your bearded dragon or reptile getting impacted in the first place, make sure you're using the appropriate substrate, and that's where a substrate that can be passed through safely and doesn't build up in the gut over time. And when it comes to food, let's say for a dragon species, usually the gap between the eyes is what size cricket or woody that I'll give them. Silkworms, I wait till they're much older to at least eat them properly. Never give them mealworms, as mealworms are actually deadly towards reptiles. What happens when your lizard is impacted and how to help it? Now of course, if it's a very bad situation, I'll say go straight to the vet to seek medical attention. But sometimes we try the home method with lukewarm water, a couple of teaspoons of sugar, and trying to massage the lizard. So for example, if I had a little bearded dragon at work that eaten a cricket a little bit too big that it should have, and it's showing symptoms of impaction, I'll grab him out, get some lukewarm water ready, get the sugar in there, give it a stir. Then once I've got all that ready, dunk the little guy in the water, give him a very gentle massage with his belly, that way trying to break up what's in his gut. Then I'll dunk his head underneath the water for about 10 seconds to allow him to drink some of that sugar water. Then massage it a little bit more, but not too hard where I'm going to pop the lizard. And then after, I don't know, 2-3 minutes of doing that, pop him back in a nice warm cage, and hopefully with the sugar giving him a burst of energy like having an energy drink, he should be able to pass that through within the next day or 2. If it's a very bad impaction, like I said, go straight to the vet. Saying that in general, just go straight to a veterinarian just to be on the safe side. That will wrap up part 1 of this series. Next episode, guys, we're looking at is neurological abscesses and cancers in reptiles. That's not going to be a fun one, that one. That's kind of a doozy, that one. So hopefully this video has at least helped you guys learn a thing or two on common illnesses once we cover it off. As the series goes on, hopefully you guys will learn more and it'll help you in the future in case you guys do come across this yourselves. So thank you guys all watching this video. I appreciate you guys watching to the very end, and I'll see you all in the next video.